Hey, I'm Scott Cole, and in this video I want to cover the takeaway and the backswing and the positions that we're trying to achieve throughout that first half of the swing. So once we've gotten in our good stance and our good posture, and I've got a 6-iron in my hand here, and we're gripping the club the way we're supposed to be gripping it, we want to think about swinging the club on a swing plane that's essentially parallel to this angle that I'm achieving as I address the ball. The only difference then is we want to return to that same position at impact, but the only difference is that I'm going to have most of my weight on my front foot and the hands are going to be slightly ahead of the ball. When I start out, I want the hands even with the ball and basically the weight distributed about 50-50. From this position, I simply swing the club back into my takeaway position. The takeaway ends when the club is parallel to the ground, and it should be basically parallel to my target line. Now, the way I get to that position is I basically perform a one-piece takeaway where I'm turning the shoulders, the hips are turning very slightly, and I get a little hinge up in my wrist, kind of like this motion here if I'm casting a club. So we want to basically translate this into this going into the backswing. So I get the club parallel to my target line. The club face is going to be angled similarly to the bend at my waist. So it should be angled slightly downward. The toe is pointed up. And then the rest of the swing, I just basically turn my shoulders and I try to blend the right amount of up with my arms with the right amount of in with my arms. So if I go too much in with not enough up, then I end up with a swing that's too flat. If I go up with not enough in, then I end up with a swing that's too steep. Okay? So we want to avoid the steep backswing, because if we end up with a steep downswing, the club face is going to be open at impact. That's the most likely scenario. And if we're too flat going back, the club face will probably rotate closed by the time we get impact. So that's the difference between a flatter swing plane and a steeper swing plane. So we want the right amount of in with the right amount of up to keep that club on a swing plane that's essentially parallel to this line that I achieve at address. So from here, we simply turn the shoulders. Ideally, we want to turn the shoulders about twice as much as the hips. So if you swing the shoulder, turn the shoulders about 90 degrees and you have enough flexibility, the hips will turn about 45. Now, if you get the club parallel to the ground at the top of your backswing, then it should be parallel to your target line. If you're short of parallel, the club should still be pointed off to the left. If you're short of parallel and the club is pointed across the line that way, then you're going to end up being in a position where you're going to end up pulling the club to the inside and you'll probably hook it. If you get laid off too much to the left, then you're going to be in a bad position where the likely scenario is that the club will come down from the outside too much and you can hook it too much. So it really all depends on your transition. The idea is that we really just want to move the body properly in the swing so that if you have a good setup and a good grip, all you got to do is have a good transition into the downswing and you're going to be able to get this club square at impact. So what other positions do we want to try and achieve? So we want that 2-to-1 ratio between the turn in our shoulders and the hips. That's what causes that torque that when we unwind it in the downswing achieves that greater swing speed. So that resistance of the hips compared to the shoulders causes some tension between the upper body and the lower body. Now we also want to get into a position where we're turning into, but not over, our right foot. So we're turning into the right foot. So if I have a driver in my hand and I'm fully loaded into my right side, I should feel the tension inside my right heel, inside my right thigh, and in my right glute. That gets me fully loaded in place. Now notice that I haven't swayed too much back, and I haven't turned that way either. So those are some swing flaws that we want to try to avoid. We want a more centered turn where the shoulders are turning similarly to the maintaining that angle that you achieve at address compared to the spine. The shoulders just turn perpendicular to the spine angle, not perpendicular or parallel to the ground. So maintain your spine angle, rotate the shoulders around the spine, create that tension between the upper and the lower body, and get the club on a nice swing plane. Now, the angle of your wrist at the top, we want to match the club face angle as well. So that will suggest that you're on a better plane. We don't want the wrist bowed like this at the top of the swing, and we don't want it too cupped like that. If it's slightly cupped, I'm okay with that. Slightly cupped to flat, and that creates that proper angle with the club face in your backswing. So that's essentially what the backswing is, and those are the angles that we're trying to achieve. But if you have issues with, your takeaway, going too much to the inside, as long as you can get the arms up at some point in the backswing, that sequence in the backswing is not nearly as important as the sequence in the downswing. So the key is that when the shoulders are done turning, the backswing is over, the downswing should already have been initiated with the lower body. So we'll touch base on that transition and the downswing and follow through in the next video. But try and work on those positions with your backswing, and you're going to learn how to swing the club better and become a much better ball striker. We'll see you in the next video.